Okay, we are live. Welcome, Josh. How are you,
Thank
man?
you. Glad to be here.
Right on. Well, I'm here with Josh Phoenix. Josh is an entrepreneur. He's a butcher. He's an agorist and an owner of Liberty Meat Solutions. And I really wanted to talk to him a lot about his butchery and what's going on with his Liberty Meat Solutions. But first, before we get to that, if maybe you can just expound, Josh, on what is an agorist and what does agorism even mean for those in my audience who may not know, and from your perspective, how does that relate to anything to do with freedom?
Awesome. Well, I mean, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert by any means or anything, but it's kind of a philosophy, I guess. It's the idea that, agorism boils down to the root word agora, which meant the market. It's an old Greek word. So if you think about it, the market kind of dictates everything, whether it comes down to freedom, government, your life, whatever. If there's a market pressure, things change. So agorism pretty much means that you believe in a free market, that is the primary pressure that drives everything else in our lives. So if you are a free thinker, if you don't like being controlled by other individuals, you know that what you do in that market and that what you freely provide, whether it be skills, services, or whatever, are going to be the driving factors in your life. So most people I know who claim to be an agorist are people who are, I guess I'd say voluntarist. There's a scary word, anarchist, which is not what people think it means. But basically, people who don't want to be controlled, they don't want the government in their business. They'd like to be able to go out and freely, provide commerce and services to individuals. So that's to me what an agorist is. And I kind of try to stick with that as a predominant philosophy in my life, too, because I like more freedom. I don't like being told what I can and cannot do. And I like to work with people who feel the same way.
Yeah, no, man, I totally get it. Along those lines, I guess, let me ask you this. What was your first job that you ever got that was kind of under the table, man? Because that kind of
speaks. I have to say, that's probably my first job, honestly.
What's that?
I think that's probably my first job, honestly. When I was, I think like probably 15 or 16, I had a neighbor guy just walked over to the house one day. I grew up homeschooled, and he said, "Hey, I see your son mowing out here all the time. Can he come mow my lawn?" I had, at that point, never had thought I should go mow all the neighbors' lawns. But he was an older guy. He was in his 80s. He needed the help, and that turned into a cool thing. I ended up going over and mowing his lawn once a week. He was cool. He'd take you down and go to the diner every time and grab lunch. We'd get a piece of pie or whatnot, hang out, help him out. It kind of bloomed into me doing several neighbors' yards. And I decided to take the college route, went to school for electronics, did all that, worked in a couple different grocery stores off and on throughout my life. But every time I kind of got in the place where I needed some extra money or I got tired of some crap going on in a corporate job, I would step away and pick up either lawn care, handyman business, general maintenance type stuff. I'm the kind of person that I'm going to work. I'm going to find something to do. And I don't need to have a boss to go make money. It makes it easy sometimes, but and that's kind of the mindset, I guess, for most people who are entrepreneurs. If you're an entrepreneur, you're an agorist and you don't know it, or maybe you do.
Sure. Yeah. That, you talking about going out and mowing the lawn, man, that just kind of made me smile because, it like brings back the way that things used to be a little bit more so than they are now, at least from my perspective. Now, I'm sure there's kids that still go out and mow lawns and there's places where that happens, but I don't know if that's as prevalent as it used to be,
I think it's starting to die back. It feels like it, but as crazy as the world's getting and as difficult as things are starting to become for people, I think we're going to see a resurgence in it.
I hope. Yeah, I hope. Because
I think you put people in the position where they either have less or they find a way to work. They're going to find a way to work,
Yeah. I really believe in the fact that if two people want to do business with one another, then it's nobody else's business with what those people do and how they do it. If you have a service, if you have a product, if you have something, I should be able to obtain that from you, and nobody else should have anything to say about that. It's an agreement that we have voluntarily, because I am a voluntarist as well.
Right. Well, like I said, as a voluntarist or anarchist or whatever you want to call it, that the predominant principle of that philosophy is the non-aggression principle. Basically, that as long as you don't harm someone else and your actions don't harm someone else, nobody else has any business interfering with that or telling you can or can't do that. Same with business between you or me. If we wanted to transact, nobody needs to get involved with that but you or me. As long as nobody else is hurt, there's no collateral damage. Why does it matter?
Yeah, I fully agree. You know, and there's the food service thing, and I think we're going to get into some stuff as it relates to how that affects your business with the state and all of that. But you know, I've often said, you know, talking to my wife, that there's no reason she shouldn't be able to bake cookies or bake whatever and sell it to somebody. And it's, hey man, it's buyer beware. If you get
There's
sick,
no reason she should need permission from somebody else to do that.
Right.
That's really
if that's
what
the
it comes down
understanding,
to.
right? If that's the understanding that the person that comes in and buys that,
Right.
this is what it is. You don't get to turn around and sue somebody over that, or
You
the
ask
state,
for
the state doesn't need to regulate.
You ask for a permit from somebody if you're buying tamales out of in a freaking parking lot.
Yeah.
No, but you know, a lot of people do.
Yeah.
If your coworker shows up with some fudge that they make, and they make really good fudge, they bring it to work and they say, hey, look, I'll make some for you at $10 just to cover my costs. Do you ask for a food safety certification or something from that when you go to Thanksgiving dinner with your grandma? Do you ask if this was all prepared for the family in a government inspected kitchen?
Right.
No. You know, it's buyer beware. We all make choices. And at the end of the day, I think we could look back at the record with the USDA and all kinds of different government agencies and see all the recalls and the crazy stuff that's gone on and the choices they've made and the things they've told us that are healthy for us. And it's not like they're protecting us. They're using it as a tool to control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a way to generate revenue as well.
Absolutely.
To some extent.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a way to extract more wealth from people who, you know.
If you look at it, it's wealth extraction, but then control as well. Because if you think back to it, if you have a populace, this is all throughout history, as far back as we can look. If you have a populace, well, how do you control them? Money, food, shelter, general resources.
Right.
You know, well, you have all those bases covered. People are your slaves. So if they can control the food supply, there it is.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. That's very true. There's a lady that sells some pretty damn good tamales out of Tractor Supply, out of Ice Chef that's here in town, and man, they're screaming. You get like 8 for like, I don't know, $10 or something. It's
well,
like
those are always the best too.
Super cheap. What's that?
Those are always the best too.
They're so good. Yeah.
Oh man, they're so much better than anything you could buy in a store.
Yeah, 100%.
I had some at a local grocery store a while back. I grabbed some because they were just quick and easy, and I was on the way out. And I'm halfway to the shop eating. I'm going, I should have bought them from the lady in the parking lot. What is this junk?
Right, no doubt, man. Hey, so where'd you get your start, man? Like, talk about how you grew up and how you kind of made your way into where you are today.
I grew up homeschooled. I'm one of those weird kids, and I never really got into the meat side of things, though. Hold on. Are you good to go on YouTube? I got a comment from somebody said they haven't seen it on the YouTube link that I posted up. But anyway.
Oh yeah. I don't know if that's broadcasting. It's on StreamYard. It'll
okay. Okay. Either way, if it doesn't show up, we'll get it back later. But anyway.
Right.
Yeah. So I kind of grew up one of them weird homeschool kids. Never really got into the meat side of things as a young guy. But one of my first jobs was working at a grocery store. And I did pretty much everything in and out of that place. And even before and then after college, I ended up going back to that sort of rat race. Worked my way through all different avenues of that industry, from ordering and management and all that fun stuff, but never really dove into the meat side of it. I would hunt. I badly did a few of my own deer at the house, but I never really knew what I was doing. And then an opportunity came up coming up on 9 years back, to move to Texas and get on some land with some family members. And pretty much I'd been wanting to get out of living in a small city for a long time, but I was in the upper Midwest, could not find decent property that I could afford. I mean, up there, it's all big ag country. It's corn country. Everything's $1 million an acre. It's ridiculous. So Well, if I've got an opportunity to actually go out and homestead, because at this point I've been listening to this crazy guy called Jack Spearco with the Survival Podcast. He had a bunch of cool ideas, and I was like, man, this is stuff's getting weird, and this is kind of the way to go. So I took the opportunity, came down here, started looking around. I mean, I was running a general contracting handyman business at the time and doing a lot of landscaping on the side. Another one of my agorist things. Finally got fed up with corporate stuff, went back to doing my own thing. Did that for 3 years. But I wasn't going to try to come down here in an area I didn't know with a lot of competition already in place and try to be that new handyman guy. So I sold all my stuff, moved down here, took a temporary job at a local deer processor about 12 miles down the road. And here we go. I ended up being one of the few people that they kept on. I ended up cutting for their retail meat case by the end of the year. By the end of the following year, I ended up one of the few managers and one of two butchers that they had cutting for the case. And I thought I knew everything. I thought I knew it all in and out. Cutting that retail box meat, didn't have a clue. But stuff kind of went sideways with the owner and everything. It's one of those really weird work cultures, small town. I decided to move on. There was another place that had opened up the other side of my house about 12 miles that was doing full-on processing. Full-on deer processing, and they were working on building a inspected kill floor for doing domestic animals. So I saw the opportunity, called them up and said, hey, look, I'm looking to make a change. You got room for me? So I came over, got on the ground floor with them, actually helped them build up their slaughter program from the get-go, including like being there the first day that the USDA ever showed up and everything. And so I learned with them and worked that for about 3 or so years until finally we got into the COVID era, where everything got ridiculously busy. And all the processors got overwhelmed because the big guys shut down. And the biggest question we would get would be, look, I've got an animal that's got a broken leg, or I've got this scenario, an animal won't load up. And I kept seeing these people calling saying they couldn't bring an animal to us. Can somebody come out? And nobody wants to do it. There are mobile processors in other parts of the world, but it's not been a big thing out here. So when things finally started to get to a point where quantity and profit took precedence over quality, and some things that I was not okay with were going on, I had my final showdown with the owner and decided to step out. And if you want to follow my podcast, you can hear more of that story, but I won't name names. Anyways, though, I decided to, I took 2 or 3 days to feel sorry for myself, I'll admit, and not really do anything, but look at job listings and things like that and try to find another butcher position. But it kind of just occurred to me, I'm like, I've had this idea in my head for the longest time of doing a mobile processing, of showing people what I know, because I've discovered this dying art that very few people know anymore. And it's one of those things that I took to. Like, I just naturally felt good at this. Like, everything that I exposed myself to this in this industry, from walking them off a trailer to sending them out in vacuum sealed bags and making smoked sausage and all this charcuterie, it just came to me. Like, it just clicked. It was something I'd love to do. So I feel like I need to share this. This isn't just for me. So I decided, look, screw, I'll put up some Craigslist ads. Put some stuff on Facebook Marketplace. Butcher, have knives, we'll travel. I started going around to all the local feed stores, hardware stores, stuff like that, hang a few flyers, shake some hands. I'd go sit for a day or two at the local farmers markets, not selling anything, just put up a table, got a banner, shook hands, talked to people, met people in the local area. And before you knew it, I was busy as could be. I mean, I was showing up at people's place. I was teaching them how to chill their own livestock. I was walking them through doing the full processing. I spent all of my little stimmy check on basic processing equipment that I would pack into my vehicle and haul out with me and work with people directly on site to get the processing done. And I based it all on the state of Texas. That, for people who don't know, in the livestock processing world, there's really kind of two authoritative agencies when it comes to what the government tells you can and cannot do with the livestock. There is the USDA, and then there's the state. In Texas, we have what we can call custom exempt, which most states have an allegory for, which is you own the animal, you're getting it processed for you. You're taking it to the processor. It's not for you. It's not for sale. You can't sell the meat. It's for you, your family, and unpaid guests. The next level up is a state inspection, where they have an inspector on site the entire time, It's more cost prohibitive. It's slower process and whatnot, but you can resell that meat within the state. The USDA level is basically the same thing, and most people just opt for that anyway, and that allows you to sell across state lines. In Texas, there is what's called a personal use exemption. That basically says if that meat never leaves your property and nobody else is consuming it, they have no jurisdiction to inspect. So based on that, I was doing all of my operations. There's nothing in the law that says that a private contractor can't come and do the work for you. However, after several years and finally a competitor complaining, the state did finally show up one day and said, you can't do this. Why can't I do this? And I literally had the law printed and ready because I knew the day was going to come one day. The Department of Making You Sad was going to show up. And they did. And pretty much came down to, we understand how you interpret the law, but here's how we're going to enforce it. You're welcome to fight it in court if you want to. I had to make a hard decision too, because it's like, on one hand, I feel like the right thing to do is to fight this. On the other hand, as a professional butcher, do I want to go to war with the state of Texas without the money to afford a lawyer? And even if I do win, I'm making them my enemy for the rest of my career and having them on my ass. And it's not an if, it's a when. They're going to freaking put me in prison because I pissed them off. So I pivoted. So since then, and before then, wild game falls under a completely different umbrella. Like they want nothing to do with it. They can't regulate from the point of slaughter. So it falls under game wardens. So I'm totally in the clear. I do that. I have established customers that have a small shop set up for their private stuff. We utilize that for wild game. Super cool. State knows about it. They show up once every couple of years and shake my hand and ask me about making elk sausage. So it's no big deal. But the rest of the time, what I've taken to doing is basically, very similar to what I was doing. I just require a little bit more involvement. I'm doing private consulting. That's why I started Liberty Meat Solutions. I show up and I teach people, I train them how to process their own meat. I can rent them equipment. I can provide packaging materials, and I can provide teaching services. And if the state's there, you can promise when they walk in that door, that customer is wearing an apron and going to have a knife in their hand. So whether or not they know how to do it, and I've spoken to multiple inspectors on this too, and they're like, well, we really can't stop you. You should maybe worry about your liability. And I'm like, no, it's not an insurance question. Is there any laws I'm breaking? No, there's no legal precedent in the state of Texas that says I need a license to be an educator when it comes to teaching butchery. So that's what I do now. And I process wild game this time of the year, about 3-4 months of the year, pretty heavily privately for individuals. They bring me their meat, I process it, and they pick it back up. So that's what's been keeping me super busy. And then, of course, I've got all kinds of side projects. I'm working on a spice line and all kinds of stuff like that, too. And then I started the podcast, doing the educational outreach through that. We've got a Telegram group. So, a good portion of my day every day is spent just educating people online about meat.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, man. It's interesting how you have to weave this path to,
and it'll always change on
stay within the sides of legality.
Yeah, as soon as you think you found the right loopholes and the ways to deal with it, it'll change on you. Now there is a path now in the state of Texas to get a custom exempt license for a mobile processing rig, where you basically have it all set up on a vehicle, and you show up and you do the full processing on site. But it's an expensive and long process. So hopefully I'll go down that route. I'm heavily considering going down that route. It's the minimal amount of state intervention that I can do and still actually provide that service to people, but it's expensive and it's time consuming. I have some friends that went down that route, and they did all the work themselves, and they spent over $25,000 on the equipment, and it took the state 6 months till they even took a look at it to start the process. So there's no shortcuts when it comes to government red tape. So find the ways to avoid it when you can, and then when you can't, you try to find the path of least resistance.
Yeah. Listening to, how you went about getting to that point, it's kind of, I'm kind of smiling, but at the same time, I'm thinking, there's a lot of people out there that are just willing to make excuses for shit that they say that they can't do, but they're not the ones that are out there looking for the work, because you doing what you did to get where you were at, that just shows that, hey, you're somebody who's not afraid to go out and work. And there's work out there to be had if people just apply themselves and stop making excuses.
Absolutely. There is work to be done. When it comes to being an entrepreneur, A lot of people try and a lot of people fail. And most of the time, if you are getting into something like that, it doesn't matter what it is, you're probably going to fail multiple times before you find something that works. It's the spaghetti method. You throw it at the wall and you see what sticks. However, if there's a problem and you can solve a problem that somebody else isn't solving, or you can do it better than them, there's probably a market. Because that really, if you think about it, it's what it comes down to is if you are able to provide a solution. That's why I went with Liberty Meat Solutions. If you can provide a solution that somebody else is not providing in your area or your market or your niche or whatever, and it's something people want and will pay for, just go do it. Yeah. Figure out the details as you go, you know?
Yeah, that's valuable lesson and information there that I think people should, if they're interested in, you know, being a little bit freer or being their own boss or making their own decisions, they should take a little bit of that advice and put it to practice. You know, that's good advice.
Well, and people don't have to go out and just quit their job like I did and start up a thing. You know, that's not, I wouldn't even advise that. It just was the situation I was in, and I decided to go ahead and just dive in and do that. But there's no reason, if you've got something that you're doing as like a side thing, or you really enjoy, or you're really good at something, even if you don't realize you're really good at it, people keep telling you you're good at something. Listen, go out, start a side gig. Start doing it as a little bit of a side income, and that very well may grow into your full-time thing. Sure. And I mean, you know, it's a ton of work. It's a ton of responsibility, and it can be a lot of stress, but at the same time, nothing is as rewarding as being the one at the end of the day that makes the call on what you do or don't do, you know?
Right. Hey, so like, let me ask you this and kind of see if we can get an answer to this, but
yeah,
you know, there's a lot of folks that are looking at possibly getting into homesteading, and, you know, with kind of what everything's going on, people are looking to maybe go out and get some livestock and get some whatever. And part of that solution is to become a little bit more food secure. And part of that food security is being able to process your own animals. So with that said, what would you recommend to somebody coming into that space that doesn't have any experience? Where should they start? What livestock should they start with? And kind of what should they be maybe thinking about?
Well, that's a huge, it depends. It depends a lot on your situation, what space you've got, what climate you're in, what your goals are, what you do or don't like to eat. But I would say if you've never done anything else, don't go out and buy a cow. You know? Sure. If you're living on a quarter-acre lot somewhere, definitely don't go buy a cow. But start small. I mean, chickens and rabbits are an easy place to start for most people. It's something you can handle at home. And even if you've got a whole farm and you've got 700 acres out in the middle of nowhere, but you have no animals, no experience, nothing to do, start small, because most things do scale up, and it is so much easier to learn it at the small scale. I don't like to process the small stuff myself. I only do my own poultry culls when I have to, but that's because of my profession. However, I would say, and it's just a shameless plug, you should follow the Renegade Butcher podcast. But also, if you're on Telegram, check out, we have Liberty Meat Chat over there. It's a really good chat group. We've got multiple butchers, multiple people in different industries, lots of homesteaders and people who are interested. And we talk about this stuff all the time, every day. So it's a really good resource. And I am hopefully, if I get my stuff back together, a little bit more time to get some web work in, I'm wanting to put together a resource website too, with all kinds of different outreach type things and people you can kind of get in touch with. But if you want to get into something larger size when it comes to livestock, I think it's hard to go wrong starting with pigs. A lot of people say goats. A lot of people say sheep. I don't have a ton of experience with either of those. I know goats are a pain in the butt to keep fenced in, but pigs are super easy, and they're so super versatile. And I mean, I know some people don't prefer to eat pork, and that's fine, but fat is one of the hardest things to produce yourself, and pigs are excellent at it, and they eat everything. So pigs or chickens. But just know, when the larger the animal, the more considerations you have when it comes to the logistics of handling that on processing day. So when you get to something that is as big as you, it's like, deer sized or bigger, you have to worry about, how am I hanging this thing while I'm processing it? How am I skinning it? How am I chilling the meat properly? How am I working with this and doing it in a safe manner so that I don't poison myself or my family? And you don't want to just jump in there and start trying to process your first beef yourself without anything but maybe a little Boy Scouts guidebook to get you through. So,
Yeah, man. That's something that I'm going to be working on here on my place because we've raised hogs here for 20 years on this
Mm,
place, and but we've always farmed that out to somebody. We've always had
right.
the guy comes brings his kill truck and it goes off. And they bring it back in packages, right? But that's one
Right.
of those areas of
So has that been
vulnerability.
in there a long time? Like the
What's
mobile
that?
slaughter side with the kill truck? With the mobile slaughter side with the kill truck, has that been a thing out there for a long time in your area? Because out in
Oh
Texas,
yeah.
that's fairly new.
Oh no, I mean, when I was a little kid, we had kill trucks coming out because I
Wow,
grew up on a
nice.
farm and kill truck would
You
come
guys are
out and do their
pretty
thing and take
rural
the
out there.
beef off. And
I've heard out places like Wyoming and Montana, it's a lot more normal because there's such big spreads and such big distance. But it depends on the state. Like Texas is actually the hardest state in the union to get a mobile processing rig.
right.
I mean, they're the only state in the U.S. that requires you to do all of your skinning in an enclosed area. Like you have to
Hmm.
find a way to skin it in the truck.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've processed deer and, we do sheep and stuff like that because it's
Oh
easy to
yeah.
handle, it's easy
Sure.
to like get it cooled. But when you start getting anything bigger than that, 300 pounds, you've got a different consideration, not only in, like you said,
Absolutely.
hanging it, and then the time factor, and then being able to cool it properly. That's
Right.
something I got to
Right.
work on. So,
Absolutely.
so
Well, and you've
what
got
would,
two ways to go when it comes to something bigger like that. When it
okay,
comes
well,
to something
let's
like
hear.
yeah, so you can go either the direction of hot cutting it, which is as soon as you've skinned it, basically you break that down into primals and immediately either do all of your cuts while that animal's chilling and get it taken care of and get it packaged up and iced down, or take those sections and chill them and then come back and work with them. Or
Mhm.
what I usually recommend people do when they're still learning and you want to learn how to do the butchery itself properly, so you have the time to be able to do so in a safe manner, is to pre-chill the whole thing. Usually a pig, I will split the carcass and then fully chill them at least overnight, typically several days. But that's not the easiest thing to do for most people because most people don't have a walk-in cooler.
Mhm.
So it depends on what your goals are. If you are getting into it and you want to do it on scale and you're planning on doing multiple large animals a year, it may be worth it to build your own small walk-in cooler. You can get by on doing it. You can actually build one for a few $1,000s if you have the right resources.
What
But
about now?
there's some
I,
cheats. There's some workarounds if you
okay, go
don't.
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Anyway, we found really, really early on when I started doing the mobile thing, because I was just looking for ways to solve problems for people. If you have access to some of the large chest freezers, like the bigger the better, you can actually buy temperature regulators that you plug into. You basically plug your freezer into the temperature regulator. It's the same thing people use for like reptile aquariums or whatnot. It'll have a heat and a cool side, but you
Mhm.
can program that temperature to maintain that freezer at, and that will actually shut that freezer off and on. And it'll even, some of the better ones, that the ones I use cost like $30 for a controller, but you can program in a compressor delay so you don't mess things up. You're not short cycling it. And I've had them maintain at 35 degrees for 6 months at a time before. So they work really well. I've probably done over 50 head of cattle and probably 100 head of pigs in people's deep freezers in their garages. Now you don't get the
Yeah.
hanging. You got to find a way to lay them out, either parted out or stretched out. And there's considerations there. But for small scale, once or twice a year, as soon as you open that thing up, you get that meat out of there, you get it cleaned back out, you can drop it right back to a freezer and store your finished product in it.
Yeah, that's kind of my game plan is to, build something that I'll be able to at least hoist the animal up with that's tall enough,
Right.
and then I can put like a chain hoist or something on it.
You
And,
have a tractor?
I don't have a tractor.
Okay.
I don't, that would be
That's gonna
ideal.
that's the easy button. Like if somebody has beef, the first thing I ask is, do you have a tractor?
Yeah.
But there are ways around it. Chain hoist is great, or you can pick up a cheap electric hoist from like Harbor Freight or something. And as long as you have a sturdy place to put it on and it'll hold, I mean, I always say go higher than the highest weight you expect to put on it, but you can get a lot done with those. I
Yeah.
mean, you can get a 500-pound electric hoist for like $200-300, and it'll save your back a ton of work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of my goals for this year, is is looking at my areas of vulnerability. I've got several of them. We all do. We all are attached to the system in some regard. And so when you start looking at those attachments and you realize, well, gee, if that goes away, I'm kind of screwed. So I'm looking at those
we can
things,
get pretty,
and one of them
pretty
is
reliant on stuff like that.
what's that?
So it's easy to get reliant on stuff that makes your life easy.
Yeah, of course, and it's like one of those things that, like 3 years ago happened. And I think it opened a lot of people's eyes to some of those vulnerabilities, and some people's eyes are still shut, but mine are open. And so those are some of the things that I'm going to be working on. So, yeah,
for sure.
Crazy,
I see Chuck down here had commented that he built himself a walk-in cooler for $500 with a CoolBot, and that's exactly what I was talking about too. There's a lot of folks who have done that. It's basically an insulated room and an alternate controller that runs an oversized window air conditioner. And yeah, you can actually build yourself a walk-in cooler. I've seen folks who bought all the stuff directly off the shelf from Home Depot, and for $2,000-$3,000 they have a 10x10 walk-in freezer, or a walk-in cooler, not freezer, pardon me, that they built on their property. So
it's like they insulate it themselves, or I mean, how do you go about that?
There's if you look up, I forget their actual website, but you can just Google CoolBot, and even if you don't use their controllers, that website is a wealth of information. They have full charts and calculators built out that tell you exactly what R value to insulate a room out to, for what size units you would need to cool that. And I mean, yeah, I want to say their controllers cost about $300 last I looked, and they've got really good customer service. I know one local dairy that runs 2 of them, and they had a problem with one of the units, and they overnighted them a replacement just on them. So they've got really good customer service. But you can do it if you have electrical knowledge with some cheaper controllers. But all of those calculations they have on their website are super valid. Typically, if you get a room set up to, I think it's like R25, you're good to go. You could actually, I've seen multiple people build one where they enclosed a room with like 6x6 and had a company come in and just blow in insulation like 4 to 6 inches, and they could actually run that as a deep freezer if they had a unit that would cool it far enough.
Huh?
Yeah. It's definitely worth it if you're looking at doing multiple a year. And then on top of that, if you're running a homestead and you have other things, other crops or stuff that's going on, you can never have too much refrigeration space. And the other thing is you can adjust the temperature. I know folks that will run a CoolBot most of the year when they're not doing their own processing at like 45, 50 degrees because they want to do things like salami or cheese aging.
Do they run like on a mini split, or what's the refrigeration?
You can do it on a mini split, or just like a large window air conditioner. Even I've got one guy bought like fairly local to me, bought an old 20-foot shipping container that was a refrigerated shipping container, but he didn't have 3-phase to run the old unit, so he walled off the back 10 foot of it. And I think he got a 20 or 25,000 BTU window air conditioner and a CoolBot, and that thing never came above 40 degrees in the heat of summer here in Texas.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. But you could insulate out a closet in your house, honestly. I don't know if I'd recommend that for hanging beef, but you can definitely make yourself a walk-in cooler. If you could you could buy a tough shed and insulate it out, slap one of these bad boys in it, and have yourself a walk-in cooler within a couple weeks.
Yeah, I've actually kind of thought of that, but I mean, other priorities too, right? There's other things.
Well, it's one of those. It's like, is it worth the investment or not? But if you can get a hold of a couple of good-sized chest freezers, there's a lot that can be done. I've aged full beef in a set of like 7-foot-long chest freezers. In fact, the guy I was talking about with that insulated shipping container, I helped him out, and they did a couple of beef every year for him and family for about 3 years straight, until finally decided to upgrade, and now those are his storage freezers, and they're still operating. So
yeah, I think that's the direction I'm going to probably head, is getting those chest freezers, getting something off Craigslist or whatever, and then going and getting one of those regulators that you spoke of. I think that'd be the most.
I'll send you a link for them. I've got them on Amazon. They're super slick.
Nice.
In fact, they'll do a heat or a cool cycle. So I've even plugged them into a crock pot before and done sous vide with them before I bought a circulator.
Right on. Yeah, I gotta come up with some kind of a solution for that, because that's my limiting factor. That plus I just don't have a place to. I mean, I go out there and you can pick the deer up. A couple dudes just throw the deer up, on a
Oh,
camera
yeah.
and work it out or whatever. And the rest of the livestock, sheep or whatever.
Hanging it
Small.
is definitely a trick. The other thing I see a lot of
Yeah.
people do, if they know their neighbors and their neighbors got a tractor, they may be able to kind of be like, hey, can I borrow it for an afternoon type thing? If it's
Yeah.
got a loader on it, man, that's the easy route. That's the easy route. Once you know how to rig up a good log chain around that loader with some good hooks, you can get a lot done.
Yeah, the nice thing about that too, man, is you can kill it over on this side of the property, and then just drive the tractor over to where you want to start busting it apart in the garage or whatever.
100%. I had some folks I helped a while back that I asked them, you have a tractor? And they said, yes. Never even occurred to me to think, is the tractor have a loader? I had an old 1940s John Deere tractor, no loader. And I was like, oh no. But thankfully I had a chain hoist with me, and they had a barn with a sturdy beam. We got it up there. It was a smaller animal. So we drug it up there with the tractor, with the chain, got the chain hoist set up, and, just had to do it the old fashioned way. The only thing with the chain hoist you got to remember is you're always going to have that rusty chain and all that grease on your hands while you're doing it. So keep a clean pair of gloves for while you're running it up. Take some bungee cords and hold that hoist chain out of the way.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you have a little bit of ingenuity, you got to realize people have been doing this. People have been processing these animals long before we had this industrial equipment.
Yeah.
Long before we even had refrigeration, people were finding a way. There are ways. It's just, you probably want to have an idea what you're getting into before you jump in feet first.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's definitely kind of an incremental process, go get a chicken from Costco and then start, learn how to break it down, and then kind of before you kill your own, right?
And I'm not trying to plug too much or anything. I do consultations for people if they're interested. And if you're remote, I'll do video consultations or over the phone, and try to at least have people think about what they need to walk through, what steps they need to take, what stuff they need to learn before they jump into it. Make sure they've kind of got all their ducks in a row before they decide to really do this. If it's their first time getting into it, obviously I like to be on site with people and walk them through and show them.
Yeah.
But that's not always an option. I can't be everywhere. So, and there's lots of folks out there doing it though. So if you've got somebody who's had a butchery background or does mobile processing or whatnot, a lot of those folks will be happy to, if say, somebody who does mobile processing close to you, hire them for the first time and say, can I learn from you? Because I want to learn to do this myself. A lot of these guys will say, sure, I'll show you what I can. So you get the experience of seeing what's really happening. And, that's pretty dang valuable. That's worth paying a guy for the first time around if you're doing a project that's big.
I kind of kick myself now, but you know how it is, man. When you progress through life, you figure out, oh, maybe I should have done this, years ago.
Oh, trust me, I know.
You're right. No going back or whatever. But it's just one of those things where my father-in-law was a butcher, lifelong butcher. So he started, cutting meat, and then he wound up, he worked in a slaughterhouse, and he was a butcher at markets and things like that. And then he had his own kill truck, and then he got his own, his own custom shop. And so that's what he did for his whole life. And he was just such a valuable resource that I look back on now and I say, man, why didn't I have that dude show me how to break something down?
Yeah.
Because it's like when he goes, it's not like the shit's on YouTube anymore, right? His shit is gone.
Yep.
That's it.
Most guys out there cutting meat don't have time to write a book about it.
Yeah. So it's good to learn stuff from people who know. So I don't have a problem with you, plugging whatever, because there's people that want information. So if they want information, it's good to know that it's available. If they contact you, you'll help them out, right?
Absolutely. And like I said, if not me, somebody else who's in this industry is more than likely going to be able to help you out.
Yeah.
Most guys who are doing this, I mean, there's jackasses out there in every industry who want to keep everything a secret, but most guys who are in this know that it's kind of a dying art, and it's something that I always took meat cutting for granted for the longest time, most of my life. Guys, cutting meat can't be that hard until you get into it and you realize there's this whole science and artistry to it that you had no idea about.
Yeah, it's goddamn impressive, man. And I'm sure watching you is impressive, but watching my father-in-law, we were hunting, and he poked this deer and got it down, and I walked over to where he was at, and I mean, it was like 4 cuts, man, and the gut pile was laying there, and I'm like, what the hell, man? How'd that happen so quick? That's what I do.
Yeah, when it's something that you do every day, you learn real quick. Like I thought, I could skin a deer pretty good until I started working that. I actually ran the slaughter floor for a good long while at the place I worked at. I'd come in and I'd do everything else too, but I pretty much ran the slaughter floor. And the main reason I did that, even though they kept trying to bring me in all the time, they wanted to pawn it off on cheap labor, was that I knew nobody was going to do it. Nobody was going to give as much of a shit as I did. I knew how the animals were going to get treated. Yeah, Brian knows. I knew that things weren't going to be done to the cleanliness standards that I preferred if I wasn't out there. So I stayed with it, which meant that on a typical day, like I would work on average 6 days a week. If I was doing beef, I would be putting 7 in the cooler by myself. If I did pigs without help, it'd be about 15 to 20. You do anything to that level for multiple years, if you aren't good at it by that point, you should probably pick a different career.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's pretty cool, man. I mean, obviously when you do something, you become good at it and you become, expert in your field. And I look at it like this. I imagine you might as well, that, you're almost like an artist, because every butcher kind of does his own thing. I mean, you're all doing the same thing, but there's different ways to break those animals down, and you're putting your spin on it. So you're it's your palette, right?
Well, and I think the thing, because I honestly haven't been into it nearly as long as a lot of folks that I've worked with. I've worked with guys who have been meat cutters for 30 years or whatnot, and they'll even be impressed with the stuff that I'm doing. And I'm not bragging, but I think and I should pass this on to people too, because I tell people this all the time, and it is the thing that has helped me succeed in everything that I've ever done, that I've done well. My lifelong philosophy has been, you learn something from everybody you work with.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's somebody who's better than you, somebody that you cannot stand. You may learn something that you don't ever want to do. You may learn from their mistakes, or you may learn one thing from that guy that changes everything from you. And you'll never know until you open your mind and pay attention to what they're doing. So every time you work with somebody new, even if you're training them, that's an opportunity to learn more. So don't ever forget that. And I'm never done learning. I'm never going to say I've mastered my craft or I am the best at what I do, because the minute that I claim that, I've already shut myself down. I've closed the door. I'm done learning.
Yeah. Yeah. I've said this a few times and people may have heard me say it before, but think about, I'm not sure how old you are, Josh, but I'm in my mid 50s now. And so I look back on my life and I'm like thinking the way that I thought at 20 was so much different than the way I thought when I was 30 and 40. And, there's just things that you're always learning. And if you're a person that like is thinking the same way from the time you're 40 to you're 80, I kind of question that. I'm like, what the fuck you been thinking about all this time? There's so much to learn.
There's been no growth. You just stay the same person, right? No, I know I'm not. I'm only now 37, but I know I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 25 years ago. No way.
Yeah.
I look back and I barely recognize that person. Now, I may have had some of the same values and the same ideas, and that's led me to where I am now. But yeah, I guarantee you, if you ask me in 10 years, I'll look back and watch some of my old podcasts and go, look at that goofy dork. Yeah. I thought he knew so much shit, but I at the same time, I think I've reached that place in my life where I feel like for once I value what I offer enough that, and it's a me thing, that I value what I know enough to actually share it. I guess it's one of those things I never felt at any point in my life before that, like I had something enough to offer and to teach. And that's why I finally got into the podcasting type of thing and the consulting type of thing, because I've got something to share that most people don't know.
Yeah, man. I think that a lot of people sell themselves short, even though they think that they don't have anything to contribute, but there's so many people out there that don't know what you know. Yeah,
absolutely.
So that people. It's important to be able to share that.
The population probably, and even guys who work at major processors, most of those guys do one particular job. They couldn't do the whole thing start to finish. People who can actually process an animal start to finish, including like value-added products. I mean, we're talking less than 1% of the population right now. And that's kind of scary when you consider that's a major part of our food supply.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, like we talked about already, but I think that that's going to start to change a little bit because, and one of the things that like caused me to think about it was just the fact that like the last beef and hogs that we had done here, had to schedule that shit like 8 months ahead of time, man. I'm like,
Yeah, it's still
so
like
that's
that.
that's not okay.
It's 8 months out, man. It's bad. Well, and after all the goofy stuff from 3 years ago, it just got even worse because all it took was a couple of those processors getting shut down. And to me, this was encouraging.
Right.
All the small guys got busy because it took about 1 week that people couldn't find the meat in the grocery store or the prices went way up. Everybody started to lose confidence in the system. Why? Everybody's wanting to buy eggs from their neighbors now, right? Because eggs got expensive and people are worried about getting a hold of them.
Yeah.
So these shortages, while they suck and they're going to cause problems and they back us up, and as a producer, it's frustrating because you can't get stuff processed. At the same time, this is exactly what we need to start waking people up, getting people to realize that no, our food system, our centralization, it's not secure because all it takes is, the wrong card pulled out for the whole house to collapse. And we're reliant on that.
Yeah. Yeah. We definitely need to be, or at least from my perspective, we definitely need to be looking at alternatives to that because, it's just like the whole egg thing or whatever. I mean, we've got so many damn eggs, and that's, I'm not like saying that
bragging about your wealth over here.
Yeah, no,
on the internet. We got so many eggs.
Yeah, I'm not, trying to be like, hey, look at what we've got. It's just the fact that like when you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
There's things that obviously I'm not ready for, but that one I was ready for. I mean,
right.
So it's just one of those things. You have to look at all areas of your life to see where those areas of vulnerability are and prioritize them based on what your concerns or your needs are.
Well, I don't think anybody, 6 months ago would have taken you seriously if you ever said that those $1.75 eggs in the grocery store, they're going to be like gold before you know it. They'd have laughed at you. Yeah. But you never know what stuff's coming up. But that's the other thing. That's like, this is just one example of the way that a centralized system can end up failing us. And you look back through history, and every advanced civilization has had these sort of rocky situations that they've went through. So when you rely on your friends, your neighbors, your network, you're a lot more resilient. You're connected directly to your food supply. So you should either be learning to produce some sort of your food, provide some value to other people somehow, or preferably working directly with people who can provide you the things that you normally buy. And not only can it save you money in the long run, you're going to get a healthier product. It's not going to be something that's just a bunch of crap that's being fed whatever they want to shove down Tyson's chickens' throats,
Yeah.
But when push comes to shove, if I know Betty down the road's got eggs, I'm a little bit less worried about not ever having eggs than I have to worry about the panic run on things at Walmart.
Yeah. Yeah. I look at it like this. I think those of us that can, it's a good idea for us to make that commitment to our family and our friends in our network to try to provide that to them. And we've got the infrastructure here to raise livestock. So the livestock that we raise here, we only need 25% of that. The rest of that goes to my family and friends. That's what it's for. And so if we can, start looking at trying to develop those types of systems within our own networks, we're just going to be stronger for it,
Well, and you're providing something that people need then too. So then if things do get bad, who's going to have your back?
Mm-hmm.
Those people who are providing for you. And if there's something that they can provide for you that's suddenly not available, they're going to take care of the guy that makes sure they have meat in the freezer, right? It's one of those things. It's value for value. You're providing a value, and they're going to be able to provide it back. And I think it's more important that people find something they can do, something that they can produce themselves, whether it's for themselves or a trade, than what it is, that they are doing something. I mean, before I ever ended up homesteading, I was raising quail on the back porch of my rented place on a 1/10 of an acre lot illegally. I wasn't supposed to even have any kind of poultry in town, but nobody knew it was back there except for the neighbors that I bribed with eggs.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing something, raising some tomatoes, some herbs, grow some microgreens. There's lots of easy little things you can do. And once you do that, it's almost like an infection. You start thinking in that self-reliant mindset. Mm-hmm. You start seeing the ways that, I spend money on that all the time in the store. I wonder how hard it is to make that. I wonder how hard it is to grow that. and suddenly you might be the guy making sauerkraut, but find a thing to do.
Right. Yeah. All of this that we've been talking about, I look at it in this way is that, even though I've done a lot of the things that I'm doing now, I'm doing it to a greater degree. And a lot of that is just due to the fact of what has happened in the last 3 years or so. And I look at that whole period of what happened there, a blessing for me,
right,
in my family, not necessarily for those that have suffered through it because they, bought into whatever they bought into. But for me, it was an opportunity to strengthen, my resolve, and it opened my eyes even further. So
right.
it's just one of those things, man, that I think we all kind of need to recognize that. And
Right.
the
a lot of us
the meat
saw
solution
kind of the
is
writing on the wall when it came to stuff. Like, we knew things were going to eventually get kind of rough. And then they started to, and maybe not in the way any of us really expected it to go, but in a way, people were way behind the times, but it started waking folks up. You're right.
Yeah.
People started seeing there's problems here.
Yeah.
And, people are very motivated by fear. That's probably the strongest motivator. So sadly, and I hate to say it, but most of us kind of woke up because we were afraid of something going to happen. And I like to think that I'm not in that place so much anymore. I don't think anything really good comes from it. You can't really grow and prosper as a person if you live your life in fear. But sometimes it takes being scared that things that you're reliant on could go away to kind of wake the hell up.
Yeah.
So to those of us who had kind of woken up a little bit and have something to provide, in a way, we kind of get thrust into that situation as leaders. We have to go out and show, look, this can be done. Calm down. Let's do this together. And I feel like that's what people who are running shows like this need to be doing. We're giving solutions rather than just highlighting the problems.
Yeah, of course, man. I mean, gosh, there's so much focus on what, I guess they are doing. And I tend to not really pay attention to that. I really can't. I can't
change it.
Right. So why?
Like that. Fear sells, though. Fear brings viewers. Yes.
Yeah.
But what do you do about it? So focus on the things you can do. Focus on the things you can change and can improve.
Yeah, 100% agree with you, brother. Yep, I totally agree with that.
I could worry about the next batch of idiots that are telling me I'm going to have to eat bugs, or I could talk to people about how to make bone broth.
Let me ask you this: if let's say I'm gonna be breaking down a hog. I got him quartered. I'm gonna break him down. What are my 3 knives that I need? Or what would you say?
Oof, that's a tough. That's a lot of personal preference, but
yeah,
I'd say a good skinning knife is going to be help you out a lot on any kind of animal like that, but it's not super necessary. If you have a good shoot. Let me think here. I've got some links I can kind of share up, but whatever you're most comfortable with. I think a good boning knife, a good deboning knife. I prefer a straight boning knife, but a lot of people prefer a curved. That's going to do 90% of what you need on a hog as far as the actual breakdown itself, including the gutting. But beyond that, if you want to cut some bigger steaks or whatnot, what they call a breaking knife would be ideal. I like to tell people, if they don't know, go with Victorinox. I've been pretty impressed lately with, I didn't realize until the last couple of years, Cold Steel came out with a commercial line, and those are really solid, good steel. They stay pretty dang sharp. But I think more important than the knife itself, learn how to use the knife, learn how to maintain it, learn how to actually hone and sharpen it yourself. Because that in itself is a dying skill. And if you don't have a good sharp blade, or you don't know how to use the knife properly and keep that blade sharp, you can have the best knife in the world and you're going to hate it by the end of the day.
Do you have any recommendations for resources on that? Books or videos, or
I need to actually do good sharpening videos. There's some really good stuff out there by the guys that Bearded Butchers YouTube channel. They've got some really good stuff on that as well. I know Patrick over at MT Knives has some really good sharpening videos too. You can find his stuff over on Jack Stuff. I've done some talks about it off and on. I think probably the most misunderstood skill is honing, using that, what people will call it a sharpening steel. It's not actually sharpening. You're straightening that wire edge that usually just gets folded or deformed on your knife. And you'll see chefs and butchers and anybody who uses the knife routinely using it off and on throughout the day, like between cuts. and it just looks like something they're doing. They're just rubbing steel together. What are they doing? But you're keeping that edge that is still sharp, active, and usable, and that actually makes that knife last so much longer. Because if that edge rolls and then you put it on a stone that's removing material, all you're doing is severing what you've already done, maybe even putting a nick in the knife. So makes you work twice as hard to do it. People get frustrated and they wonder why they can't sharpen a knife. I like to use a good 3-sided stone. Some people like to use the belt sharpeners. I say be careful with that until you really know what you're doing. You can overheat a knife and ruin its temper. But the main thing is just learning the angle, deciding on that, and being patient and understanding that it's a skill in its own. And you can probably get a good set of knives. Watch as many videos as you can about it. If you can get some hands-on instruction for somebody who knows what they're doing, great. But spend some time working with that knife, dulling it, learning to sharpen it back, and there's no shortcuts. There's no shortcuts.
Yeah. As in many things in life, right?
Right. There's lots of handy tools and stuff you can get out there that'll help put a good edge on the blade, but it'll never be as good of a sharp edge. Not a real edge as one that's put on by hand. So.
Yeah, that's a skill that I don't really profess to say that I have any real competency at.
I honestly never got that good at it until I had a need to. So I think that's the same for most people. I've gotten pretty good at keeping an edge on a knife, but in my line of work, it's sort of necessary.
Right.
Some guys are just knife freaks. I've always loved knives. I've always had them. I was never really good at sharpening a knife until I got really good at dulling one.
Yeah. You know this channel here, Chuck B's talking about?
I don't. I feel like I've seen him around YouTube here and there, but I don't know him personally, no.
Right.
But yeah, he says a good channel to learn from, Neves Knives.
Yeah, I never
I'll have to check him out. I'll have to do some looking. But I know MT Knives does some really good stuff. Patrick Rorman over there.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of guys that really dive into that too. I know a few guys on TikTok, a lot of bladesmiths. In fact, I bet he'd have some good tips over in my Liberty Meat Chat on Telegram, but he came over from TikTok. There's a guy over there, Ravensmith Blades. He's actually a knife maker.
Yeah.
And, he has some really good input on a lot of stuff going on over there too. He's I think he, if I remember correctly, was trying to enter a knife in that whole Fortune Fire competition at one point too. So he's done some cool stuff.
Yeah, I got a buddy who's I think I had him on like second or third. I think it was like my third live stream. I had him on as a guest, and he's a total knife nerd. I mean, he's super into it, and he's always sharpening, and he's got all these knives he collected and stuff.
Really hardcore into the martial arts side of the thing in college. I did historical European martial arts, and so I've always been into just blades and knives and stuff like that. And it's really cool to kind of see after I kind of walked away from that because I've been too busy to mess with it. The correlations though between what I learned from that side of it to the actual butchery side of it, and it's like from the knife nerd angle, it's expanded my knowledge so much. It's using it, you know?
Right. Well, cool, man. I understand you got a Spice of the Month club. What's that all about?
I'm working on that. I'm getting ready to start a Spice of the Month club. So a while back, the last couple of years, I'd gone to Float Fest and I kind of did some little agarish vending there and little barbecue and whatnot. And everybody kind of kicked me in the butt and said, "Hey, man, we really like the seasonings that you're doing." And I've had multiple of my dear customers say similar. Why don't you sell spices? I don't know if I want to get into it, mass blending and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, I decided to dabble a little bit more with it, come up with some of my own recipes and stuff. And we may do some larger scale, like sausage seasonings and stuff like that. But I've started to dabble a lot more with individual, like just shaker seasonings, you know, barbecue chicken, steak seasonings, things like that. And I think we might do something kind of special with that. I did just a quick run of something that I could never make again the same way. It was a small batch, smoked salt, smoked vegetables, dehydrated, blended myself, made like 8 bottles of it, and gave away some to friends, kept a few for myself. And then I said, hey, I have 3 of these. They're an exclusive thing. Put them up on Telegram as like, hey, if anybody, whatever highest bid, you can have it. And somebody bought one for $25. What the heck?
Best thing you ever made, and it's probably the best thing you ever made, and you'll never duplicate it, huh?
Dude, I couldn't duplicate it if I wanted to. But I gave some away as some YouTube giveaways for some other creators. Brian over there in the Lots Project, he had a big giveaway. They finally hit 1,000 followers. So I threw that in, and it's been super popular. Like everybody's like, well, when are you going to make some more of that? I'm like, you'll never get it again.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of thinking about doing like starting up a line of like half dozen to a dozen spice lines that you could subscribe and turn around and be like, hey, look, I want to get a refill of, for a shaker's worth every month. Plus, you're going to get a thrown in bonus like something handcrafted, one off, not something you can buy, limited run type thing thrown in. So every month you get something that you ordered and something special, and, just kind of play with that idea. I'm still fleshing out exactly how it's going to work, but I have started to get some actual blends and recipes together. And I did just finally, I feel like kind of crack the code a little bit on, because there's a lot of folks that are into the keto, the carnivore, they want to go super low carb. I have a really solid sweet breakfast sausage seasoning, but it's full of sugar because it's a sweet breakfast sausage seasoning. It's old fashioned traditional, kind of like the sweet brown sugar Jimmy Dean type stuff you get. I managed to come up with the zero sugar that doesn't use artificial stuff. It uses stevia. So I had no idea how that was going to play well with meat. The proportions are so different because it is ridiculously sweeter by volume than sugar is. So it took some experimentation, but I've sent out a bunch of sample batches to people. I put up a thing and said, hey, look, if you want to try it, just pay for shipping. And
Nice.
We'll see how the feedback comes. But everybody so far who's tried it, they have no idea there's no sugar in it until I tell them.
Yeah,
so,
that's pretty cool, man.
pretty good. So if you want to kind of scratch that itch, hey, holler at me. I'll send you a pack.
Right on. Yeah, I wound up getting some roadkill here a couple months back. And yeah, it's pretty sweet, man. I mean, it was just like a fresh kill. I mean, it hit it right in the head.
Hey, man,
and I got a phone call, and I was there in like 5 minutes to get it.
Perfect.
And it was like a 42-degree day, right? No flies. Yep. So it was just a perfect processing day. I take my time and quartered it, got it in the refrigerator. And then I wound up cutting it into steaks. And what was left over, I wound up with about 25 pounds of sausage that I made out of it, mixed it with some pork fat. And I didn't have any good spice. So I wound up going down to the local butcher shop, and they gave me some stuff, but that's the same shit you can get on Amazon.
Right.
So if I could get some custom stuff, that'd be kind of cool.
Exactly. Well, that's the other thing I've kind of started to branch into a little bit is the actual custom blending. Because part of what I do during deer season, people will bring me their deer and they say, hey, look, here's what I want for cuts. Here's what I want for sausage or whatnot. And I've been always super open with it. I'm like, I've worked at multiple different processors that are very popular around here for their sausage. I know how to make and replicate both of them. Plus, I tend to do my own spin on things. So, you let me know whatever you want. I'll have a menu up on the wall, and I'm like, that's all just what people ask for. If you know what you want, if you want it spicier, you want this, you want that, I'll make it to your specs, because I don't put everybody's deer into a 200-pound hopper and grind it all together. I do each individual order by itself. So it doesn't hurt my feelings to add a little bit more garlic.
Sure.
So since I've been doing that, I've had multiple different people who want to process their own that have contacted me and said, hey, look, I have X amount of sausage I'm trying to make. I really like your stuff, but I don't want to have to crunch the numbers on exactly how much I need. So can you mix it up for me? Sure. Mix it up and sell it. So I'm going to offer that as well as custom recipe type stuff. If you go, hey, man, I've got a 15-pound brisket I want to cook up next weekend. You want to ship me something? I'll whip it up and send it out to you. Or if you go, hey, look, I want a jerky that kind of tastes like this. I want like a shaker seasoning or a marinade. I mean, I'm open to experimenting with stuff. And I've always loved cooking since I was a kid. So I feed off of that, just opportunities to experiment with things and make up test batches just so I get a chance to eat it. And then I'll send the stuff out. So, a lot of people do custom stuff, custom this, that, the other, coffee roasting. I'm going to try to be that custom spice guy too. So if you've got what you're looking for, just holler at me. We're doing Renegade Butcher Seasonings.
Right on. That sounds cool, man. You mentioned Float Fest. So what's up with Float, man? I understand.
Dude,
did they explode or what?
Dude, it was great from the get-go. They had such a great platform going on. The people who were involved were super loyal, and I was down with it. I didn't even know what Float was the first time I showed up for the first Float Fest. I heard some of the guys that were on Loose to Goose were going to be out there.
Yeah.
And it was close enough to me. I was like, look, all right, maybe this will finally get me going. I'm going to take some of the stuff that I know how to do. Let me go and see if I can trade it for some Bitcoin, because I'd rather earn it than sell for it, that kind of thing. So I decided to go out there. I said, if this sucks, I'll just go home. I ended up staying the whole time. Inadvertently ended up cooking half the crap. I bought a bunch of frozen sausage I made up just to trade with people. And it was a weird thing. Their first year out there, the weather messed with people. It was windier. People thought they were going to have fire rings. They didn't. So I had a grill with me. I was camping out there in my van. I ended up on a little bitty like $10 Walmart grill cooking for all the people that showed up, basically the whole time. That thing stayed hot. Somebody ran to town, got me more charcoal and stuff. I just kept everybody fed, and we had a good old time doing it. So the next year I went back and I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it full scale. Brought the whole barbecue setup. I rented a U-Haul to haul all my shit out there. Brought over 400 pounds of meat. You know, we turned into a whole thing. But things, I think, kind of got, I don't know where they sidetracked on their platform, but they started making a lot of promises they weren't keeping to people. They got a lot of people investing in their platform, and all on it. And now I don't know. It seems like they said they are not done. They're shifting directions. They're no longer doing their social media thing. They're promoting other social media. I don't even know, but from what I can tell, Float Live doesn't work anymore. Nobody uses Float anymore, other than it's just an echo chamber for the same fear porn. And I haven't heard.
Yeah, that's, you know what, man. That's what everybody. That's what every business says that is failing. Oh, we're restructuring or whatever, you know?
Right. Well, we're looking for new lines of investment as we pivot. Well, that's great, but you didn't follow up with the promises that you made to the people who did invest with you before.
They took money from people, right? With their NFTs and shit like that or whatever.
They did. Everybody who bought into it, basically, these NFTs were going to give you basically like a premium version of the platform, ideally, once everything was up and working, and they were going to release their own token, which, I mean, honestly, I don't care about. I'd rather have Bitcoin, but that's great. You know, you were going to get this, and it was going to be like a currency within the platform itself. Well, now that the platform's not around, all those folks who invested that, they're not getting those tokens. They say they're going to make it, they keep promising they're going to make it good for these people, but they also have been promised they were going to release their tokens in 5 months 3 times ago.
Yeah, that sucks.
So it's just not going to happen. So it's one of those, I think they fleeced everybody for what they could get. Now they're moving on to new investors, and they're just trying to, it kind of became a grift, and it's sad because I think
that sucks, man. I was over there for a little bit, you know, whatever. I mean, I you know, checked it out and stuff, and I don't know, it wasn't my jam, I guess, you know. I mean,
I'm the same way with MeWe. Like, I just don't get into the platform that much, but well, the only reason I even got into it at all was that first Float Fest, and it was fairly local to me. And then so I tried really hard to help them promote their platform, because I was like, this would be great if they're going to keep doing it in this area. It's a couple hours for me. It's a great community. Some of the best times in my life I've had out there. It's like almost life-changing. Love that the community, meeting up with people. It's like everybody who's gone to SRF and stuff, same thing. You go to one of these events, man, it is so different in person, and it's a wonderful thing. And so it kind of hurts me that this year I'm not going to be at that festival again this year, coming up for the spring. I mean, it was something I was really looking forward to, but you know, it is what it is. Things happen, things change. So that community building's continued online, and hopefully I'll be able to get some of these other events around the country as things go on too.
Sure. Yeah. I just, you know, hopefully that those folks wind up doing right by the people that actually gave them money, because if they take their shit and don't give it back to them, that's a little bit, I don't know. That's not okay.
Yeah, I know. And I've had plenty of event time on the whole Float shenanigans, and I had my own things going on with them too, because there was multiple different little contests and stuff that had gone on that finally they made right on it, but it took a lot of pressure to get them to do it. So
I heard old Cool Man Tim talking about it.
I think they ended up losing a lot of their developers, and their budget kind of didn't keep up with their costs. It's one of them things, you know. Like, I think they thought it was all going to take off, and then it didn't, and they didn't want to just admit that things kind of failed. It's one of those, they just want to kind of keep it going in a different way. And I don't know. I think they just need to say, look, guys, we fucked up and throw in the towel. And people will have a little bit more respect if they did that.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. One of those things, live and learn, right?
You invest into something like that, you know, you can't expect that you're going to bat 100. You know, something's going to fall through now and then. I'm not even mad about it. I'm not going to sit around and cry about it. But I'm like, hey, look, if you want to make good on it, make good on it. If you want to come out with your tokens, I'd rather take them in Bitcoin, because at this point, your tokens aren't worth anything to me. But hey, you know.
Yeah, no, I hear that, man. I hear it for sure.
But I mean, I can't complain. Those 2 years that I went and did it, man, awesome times, great community building, met a ton of people. And I wouldn't be here on this podcast or running my own podcast or working with a bunch of the people that I know now if I hadn't gone there and met a bunch of people and did the networking in the community. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you can get to an event that's somehow in this space, do it. Just do it. Don't even double think it. Just do it. Find the time.
Yep, that's so important. I mean, you know, a lot of people want to be in these online communities, but they don't recognize that it's just not the same unless you actually can meet a person, unless you can actually shake their hand, look them in the face, and get a chance to establish those types of relationships. It's just different, you know.
Right.
And a lot of people aren't willing to put themselves in that position, and that's fine. You know, that's, do what you do, but it is very rewarding when you can go to these places and you can actually have human interactions, because our lives have kind of revolved around this mediated experience anymore.
Oh, yeah.
You know, what we're doing now is through media. We're not actually, sitting in the same room. So when you can do that, when you can get in the same room with another human being and
it changes
interact
the whole
with them,
dynamic. I mean, I love the internet and I love these communities. There's so much growth and so much learning that has come out of it, so much connection. I've made some great friends. Wouldn't trade it for the world, but it does not replace being able to look somebody in the eyes and shake their hands, or sit down and have a drink with them. You know, you go to one of these events and you leave, and it's almost like the day you're leaving is a funeral. You're like, oh man, I have to go back to the real life. Sucks. This is terrible. I've met all these lifelong friends, and I don't know when I'm going to see them again. You know, it's one of those. It's like the last day of school for people who went and did that. You know. Yeah. But it's totally worth it. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it is. It is.
Kyle down here saying he hasn't gotten a sample of that seasoning yet. And I was like, well, I'll get you, man. Just send me a message.
Yeah. It's a level of commitment that, people need to consider, at least,
Oh, for sure. If you got the opportunity to do so, definitely it's worth it. It's worth it. I questioned for years if it was worth the time and the money to go do it. And no, not even a question anymore.
Right. Well, that said, are there any festivals that you're thinking of going to, or any events or anything that people can find Josh at?
I'm really trying to get out to SRF. I don't know if I'll make it in the spring. I'm really trying to make it work for the fall. Love to get out to some of the LFTN events as well. As far as that goes, though, locally, I kind of missed the boat this year on doing a lot of the stuff out there with the Greater Reset type stuff's not too far from me. But Texas is a big state, and there's not a lot going on in the state of Texas to begin with. If I drive any direction right now, I'm still in the state of Texas for at least 5 hours. So there's not a lot of stuff real close to me. And I do have animals. I do have a small homestead and a business, so it's hard for me to get away. But if I do for sure commit to being able to get to an event, you can bet I will be updating everybody.
Right
on
on.
My social media is about that, for sure.
Right on. What do you got on your property, man? What are you raising?
Not a ton right now, mostly poultry. I always do a little bit with pigs. I only have one right now that I need to redo all my pig setup and everything before I get back into it. But geese, ducks, chicken. I've had quail in the past. I don't bother keeping them right now. There's just too much work to keep something in a cage. I've dabbled with rabbits, didn't stick with it. I've kind of played with everything. But, mostly small stuff right now, that egg production and whatnot. I'd love to be able to do a beef, but I might have the space to do one, I don't have the fencing or the time to mess with it. So, but in my line of work, it's not hard for me to find somebody to trade for. So yeah, for sure, man. Yeah. That's definitely an option. A bit of gardening and stuff like that. I'm really starting to get my mind into starting seeds. Hopefully this week I'll be getting all the seeds started. So hopefully be doing a bunch more with that. Yeah, I got to get probably middle of next month. I'm going to get my tomatoes and peppers and stuff, started, at least in kind of, the initial stage of it, because we're going to be hitting spring here pretty quick, Oh man, it's just around the corner, especially as far south as I am. It's, whew. Yeah. I mean, if you don't have your stuff started by February, you're late. Yeah. So, I'll see you there, man. Chuck says I met both him and his son out there at SRF. Back in October. I was listening to his stuff on Tim's 24-hour live. That was it's some really good stuff up on there too. So I'll if you're going to be out there, Chuck, I'll see you in March. I guess I'm going back out there. So awesome. And I know Brian from the Lots Project, and him and his wife Corey are definitely planning on being out there in March for sure. That's going to be like one of their first stops when they leave Texas here.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, I'd love to make it out there in March. It's just such short notice. I don't think it's going to happen yet this year, but I am trying to really trying hard to make the fall one.
Yeah. Hey, so I like to ask people, man, about their everyday carry. I'm sure you carry some things in your pocket. What do you generally carry, and what's your favorite thing?
Oh man, are we talking everyday carry as far as a pew pew, or are we talking about just
Yeah, whatever, man. It's like, you know, whatever your pistola is.
I've always got at least 2 different knives on me. My philosophy for the longest time, and especially getting into this line of work, is you need to have one sharp knife and one dull knife that you don't mind beating up. So I've always got that. I prefer. I always have a folding knife in my pocket, but I prefer a straight blade knife. Something that's non-folder, you can't break. You could actually take out in the woods and baton some wood if you needed to, or use as a redneck screwdriver if you had to. Of course, I do carry a pistol. I've got right now a Taurus that I'm carrying, a G3C 9mm. Do enjoy that. I've actually recently started carrying a tourniquet on me all the time, which I should have done a long time ago. And I've actually had the need for it before and not had one handy and had to improvise. So that's a pretty important thing. I've usually got a couple of lighters, pens. Oh shoot! Of course, you've got to have your basic financial stuff, your paperwork, your wallet. If you don't have that on you, what are you even doing with life? But you know, I mean, hey, everybody's favorite EDC nowadays is a cell phone, and there's so many resources you can have available on there.
Yeah,
I carry a Coast flashlight, USB rechargeable. Shoot, if I inventoried my pockets right now, we'd have another podcast.
Well, now that you're carrying that tourniquet, I know that's going to make Chuck very happy, because Chuck's the tourniquet guy, man. He's the medical guy.
It was actually listening to Chuck's thing on Tim's there that made me kind of realize that. I was like, what am I doing not carrying one on my person? So I think it was that night, actually, I went on Amazon and I went ahead and got 3-pack. I didn't buy anything super fancy and expensive, but I get a reputable generic brand, 3 of them, keep one in the vehicle, one in my pocket, and one in my backpack that usually stays in the vehicle.
Yeah, that's a good idea, man.
Like I said, martial arts. I've always fiddled with that off and on, and I've had, you can find it on TikTok if you want, dumb times where I've decided I'm going to break this thing out and practice. I even did it on video, stuck it in my thigh. Thankfully, not an arterial bleed, but I.
What was it?
Only time in my life I've had to go and get stitches.
What'd you do? What'd you stick in your leg?
A sword.
Oh dang, dude.
Yeah. Shoved it right in the inside of the knee. I mean, I thought it was an arterial bleed, but thankfully, I've had basic first aid training multiple times as a kid. I was in multiple survival groups as a kid, 4-H, FFA, and stuff like that. We always have first aid training, and I've done some advanced first aid training too. So I pretty much knew the immediate stop the bleed type stuff. Unfortunately, all that was really handy for me at the time was a not so clean rag and a tent peg. But you know what? I made a tourniquet, limped myself in the house, took care of things, evaluated the situation, realized this was bad, got help, got myself to an urgent care. And thankfully, it was just a fairly large arterial laceration. I mean, not arterial, just a vein laceration.
Oh, okay. I was like, arterial.
No, there was not arterial. But I tell you what, when I took my hand off that, I initially realized, I got myself. Took my hand off, and you see a squirt of blood coming out of your leg.
Yeah.
You have that moment of, well, this could end. You know.
What did you think you were a ninja, or what were you just like doing all this stuff, or what?
I was actually videoing myself going through doing demonstration or doing basic just moves. In Japanese martial arts they call them a kata. This was the European version, but a basic drill. And I've gotten the habit years ago, because I did this solid for about 10 years. I would video myself going through these, because you would see after the fact, if you rewatch it, you'll see the flaws in your technique, and you see all the mistakes you made that you didn't realize at the time. So I was critiquing myself, and this has been a good 6 months since I picked anything up. And like a dumbass, I decided one day, I had a frustrating day. I'm going to blow off a little steam. I'm going to do some practice, grab the sharp one like an idiot, set up the camera, go to town, get a little bit too advanced for my level of incompetency, because I haven't done it in a long time. And, stuck a sharp object in my leg. So we all make mistakes. Stupid things happen. And I'm glad that I knew what to do in the situation. And I'll tell you right now, if you aren't carrying a tourniquet, and more importantly than something like that, or basic medical care, learn what to do with it. Learn skills. Take a class. Talk to somebody. Watch some YouTubes. Do something. Learn what to do, because guess what? It doesn't have to be something stupid like what I did. You could be running a chainsaw. You could be working on a tractor somewhere. You could be driving down the road and getting in an accident, and you're the first person there.
Mm-hmm.
When you've got a piece of metal sticking through your thigh and there's blood squirting everywhere, you may have another 90 seconds until you're dead. And ain't nobody going to do anything about it but you. So learn it now.
Very good advice, man. That's very good advice.
It's a little bit scary to be put in that position, but I'll tell you what, it definitely reinforces the fact that sometimes if you can't rely on yourself, you can't rely on anybody.
Yeah. That's you are your own first responder, man.
Yep. Well, you may be the only first responder you get. You don't know that at
That's
the time.
true.
And trust me, if we could plan when these things are going to happen, they wouldn't happen.
Yeah, that's super true. So what do you have as far as anything planned on your homestead? Do you have any big projects coming up, or do you look into
super major coming up here in the near future? Other than I'm looking to get some seeds started. I really want to focus on some more gardening this year than I have. I started to dabble with wicking beds a little bit last year, and that was actually a really good move with the drought we had, because it was rough here this last summer. And I really want to expand that this year. I picked up a bunch of extra just protein tubs that somebody was throwing away, and I'm going to try to expand those into a bunch of different wicking beds in combination with a little aquaponic tank that I have in the back, an old IBC tote, just a minnow pond, and hopefully do some more with that. I want to get more into growing some of my own herbs and spices for the Whole Spice of the Month Club, if I can manage to pull that off. And that's going to be the short-term goals coming up. I don't have plans to expand the livestock a whole ton right now or anything. There's a lot of basic fence maintenance and stuff that needs to be done that's been neglected the last couple of years. So there's always something to do. I don't need to find new projects to keep busy for sure.
Yeah. I'm sure your line of work keeps you pretty busy, right?
Yeah, and that's the fun thing. It's always a balance of, there's always so much to get done at the house, but I'm gone a lot too. And Texas is big, and a lot of times somebody will call me up and they're 5 hours away from me. So sometimes it's a travel job, and I may be gone for two or 3 days. Right. So it's
right on. Well, man, it's been good talking to you, Josh. Man, I think we covered a fair bit of ground. So. Is there anything maybe you want to tell folks as far as just on closing, or any place that they can find you social media wise, or what you got?
Absolutely. I know you've got the link you're going to put down there, but that renegadebutcher.com should get you pretty much everywhere. But the easiest way to get in touch with me is going to be Telegram. You can find me over there just at Renegade Butcher, or look up, you can just search for Liberty Meat Chat. We've got a pretty good group over there, over 80 people now. And we do discussions every single day up there. This year, I've committed to being way more involved in the kind of stuff. So I've been posting a question every single morning in audio, and it's really got some great discussion going. I post it up on TikTok and stuff as well, and YouTube Shorts. So, but you can find me on YouTube as well. My podcast, The Renegade Butcher Show. I'm going to be on 6 o'clock, basically, be about 24 hours from now, tomorrow night. Have my podcast as well. So. If you can't find me, you're not looking. Just Google Renegade Butcher. And there's nobody else out there using it right now yet.
Nice. Well, cool, man. I guess we can probably wrap it up there, unless you have something else you want to talk about. It's getting kind of dark your way, isn't it?
I think I'm good. Yeah, it's getting close to dark, so I got to get on back to the old house and get a few things done too. But man, it's been awesome sitting here and chatting with you. I didn't know what we were going to get into, but I think it's been a real good discussion.
Yeah, it is, man. I'm glad to got a chance to, hook up with you or whatever. The first time I actually heard of you, believe it or not, was through Jack Spearco, when you were on Spearco's.
Yes.
So that's kind of where I even learned about you. So
that's where a lot of people heard about me first. I'll tell you what, it was one of the probably like the third podcast that I was ever interviewed on, and I was not sure about that. I was not expecting it. I was finally kind of goaded by some people into go ahead and apply to be on Jack's show. I was like, okay, thinking it's going to be 2-3 months till he gets to me, and I was the next interview.
Huh.
So
yeah, no, you have your own.
I tell you what, it was. He's a good guy. I met him at Float Fest last year, actually, too, in person. So we got to hang out a little bit, and he's such a chill guy. Everything you listen to him on the air, and everybody thinks he's just this big celebrity, and he is. He's got a huge following and everything like that. But man, he is so down to earth. And if you get a chance to go to one of his workshops, I totally recommend it.
Yeah, he's one of those guys, man, that has a pretty big reach, as far as
He does.
all of the things that, kind of a lot of the people that I know in this community, it kind of goes through Jack. So
yeah, about 75% of the people that are in this community found Jack before they found anybody else. It seems like, you get a few of them that found Tim or Nicole or somebody first and kind of get pulled in, but he's been like that kind of hub for it. But, at the same time, I don't want to copy Jack, but the one thing I want to take from him is he's gotten to where he is by being Jack, by being authentic, by being himself and doing his thing and not compromising and selling out. So, if you're going to get into something like this, do that. Just go do your thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't pay to try to be somebody else. Cause what's so great about them? Just be yourself.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, no, super cool guy. And first I ever heard of you was on that Tim's Live.
Oh,
you're putting everything out there, and I was like, oh no, actually, I forget about that. No, it was when you were interviewed on the Cole show.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that was
everything too. And I was like, I started seeing your name pop up everywhere because it's one of the, once you get on something like that, you start getting on all the shows. It was like a circuit. I was on like 8 shows back to back all of a sudden, And I was like, who's this Porterhouse guy?
Yeah.
Is he a T-bone or what? I had no idea.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I had somebody.
Where'd that nickname come from?
Oh, it was one of those things when you hike, you're a long distance hiker or whatever, that you're out on trail for a while, you wind up getting a trail name assigned to you. And that's kind of where that came from. I mean, the people we were hiking with knew that we had cattle, and then I was always incessantly talking about food and the steaks that I wanted to eat when I got into town, and so it just kind of came and then
Can't believe it. We made it through the whole show without the butcher asking you why your name Porterhouse.
Porterhouse, that's right. It's funny, but like the first person, or really the only person that's like in Jack's ecosystem that I learned about before I learned about Jack was Dixie. And of course, Dixie, that's her trail name, Jessica Mills, one of his, expert council members. But I used to watch her, all of her YouTube videos and stuff. I learned of her prior to even coming across Jack. But
I haven't heard a lot from her lately because I think she's been out on the trail and doing stuff. But that she's got some really cool content. I never got into the whole long distance hiking type thing. I've done some backpacking and stuff when I was younger, but it's always just weekend warrior type stuff.
Yeah. Oh man, you know what? I kind of wanted to hike the PCT, for a while, and we wound up, we haven't completed it. We still have we got a lot to go. We got to go from all the way from Donner Summit down to Mexico. But we did all of basically from Donner to Canada already.
Wow.
But it's something, man, when you get out there, it's just like, you just love it. Right. I mean, it's like, no fucking phones, none of that.
The further away I get from humanity, the better off I feel.
No, it's just an amazing experience, so I really miss it. We didn't get out this last year. Let's see, we didn't go out in 2022. We were going to, but we got a new puppy and whatever. So, it changed our plans, but I miss it and we want to get back out, but it's very hard to do when you have a farm you got to leave all your stuff and then, hope that your animals and shit aren't dead when you come home,
Right. Finding a farm setter and training them is not an easy task. It's not. Yeah, absolutely. So absolutely. But no, I totally get that, man. And it's so easy to overlook because we're so inundated with technology and connection and everything now with everybody, internet, phones, it's all on our face. But you get out and get away from it all. I'll tell you what, it puts in perspective what real life is, what the real world is that we forget. This is what it means to be a human, a living being on this planet. And you come back a different person pretty much every time you go out.
Yeah, it's something I really miss and I wish I could do more of. But again, the trail isn't going anywhere.
Oh no.
It'll always be there. So we'll figure it out somehow that we can get back out. And
there's always another adventure around the corner.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool, man. Thanks. I'll put those links in there for, if you send them to me. And I appreciate you coming on, Josh. And thanks to everybody that was active in the chat tonight.
Absolutely. Good
Really
crowd.
appreciate everyone.
All right. Thanks,
So-
everybody. See y'all around.
Okay, we'll see you guys.